here in City Hall chambers on August the 4th, 2020. I'd like to welcome all members of the public watching on YouTube and welcome everybody here this evening. We have all members of council, and we have our Director of Tech Services, Aaron McDonald. We have our Director and Acting CAO, JP DeRosier. And we have Linda Stevenson here from Tech Services. We have Mike Tasuska, the Director of Economic Development. And we have Chief Dave Poirier from the Police Department. And we have our committee here tonight, and I'd like to introduce our newest member for the Planning Committee, Kate Cormier, retired business person and longtime resident, and thank you for agreeing to serve on the committee, with Natalie Hashey and Carl Delaney. And we have Fred Horn here from the Wyatt Properties. So I believe we've gotten through to everybody, and Brian Harlick over here is running the controls for sound and YouTube and whatever else he has to do there. So welcome all, and we welcome the media too. I understand some of the media members are going to be watching on YouTube, so welcome, and we will continue on with the agenda. The special council meeting first. We got a short one, okay, so we'll call the special council meeting to order. And I understand there's a resolution, two resolutions, and which councillor would be prepared to move the resolutions in regards to the planning board appointment? Councillor McFeely.
Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a motion, resolution number COS 20-007, moved by myself, Councillor McFeely, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Norma McColeman. There is a citizen member vacancy on the Heritage Planning Board. Only council may appoint a citizen member to the Heritage Planning Board in accordance with section 3.3 of the Heritage Conservation Bylaw. Be resolved that Kate Cormier be appointed as a citizen member of the Heritage Planning Board for the remainder of its term until June 17, 2021.
Moved by Councillor McFeely and seconded by Deputy Mayor McColeman.
And I should just offer a note on the Kate would be replacing Julie Simmons, who passed away about a month ago. So we certainly, we already did, but once again would offer our condolences to Julie's family and thank Julie for her many years as an advocate for heritage in Summerside. So thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor McFeely. Moved by Councillor Brian McFeely and seconded by Deputy Mayor McColeman. All in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary nay. Motion carried unanimously, Katie. Okay, that's the first resolution, and I believe there is one more.
There is, Your Worship, and I just would preface that resolution with a little bit of an explanation. I'm introducing a motion to rescind our resolution COS 20-64 passed by Council on June 1st of this year. The resolution was regarding 565 Water Street zoning bylaw amendment. Council diligently had gone through the process of undertaking rezoning of this roughly 6-acre parcel of land with the expressed intent to allow for a comprehensive development of this parcel. However, with COVID and other circumstances beyond our control, and based on the internal review of our process, we realized a minor procedural error in the way in which we reached our decision. The challenge is that we did not allow the full clear notice days, and while it did not influence the outcome, we feel we should restart the process. Specifically, we did not allow enough clear days for public notice. The shortage of one day due to a holiday during the rezoning time frame resulted in some confusion in the timing. With that, we have decided that we will rescind this motion and start the process over again so it's open and clear for all citizens. So that's the rationale behind the motion, Your Worship, and I'm pleased to put the motion forward, moved by myself, Councillor McFeely, and seconded by Councillor Adam. Whereas Resolution COS 20-064 was passed by Council on June 1st, 2020. And whereas Council identified upon review of that process by which the Resolution COS 20-064 was passed appears to not have been in strict compliance with the requirements of the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas owing to this procedural irregularity, Council wishes to rescind Resolution 20-064 pursuant to Section 126 of the Municipal Government Act. Be resolved that Resolution COS 20-064 is hereby rescinded.
Moved by Councillor McFeely and seconded by Councillor Adams. Any discussion on the resolution? Pretty clearly explained out by yourself there at the beginning. So, all in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary nay. Carried. So is that all we have for the special council meeting? So is there a motion to adjourn the special meeting and then we'll go into the committee? Moved by Councillor Snow and seconded by Councillor McDougall. All in favour? Aye. Contrary nay. Carried. Thank you very much. That's for the council meeting. Now we'll move into the committee meetings, and I believe the Heritage Planning Board, Councillor McFeely, is still on the floor, or have the floor.
I thank you, Your Worship. Too many committees. Anyhow, we will call the Heritage Planning Board meeting to order. We have a few things on the agenda tonight. And some resolutions to deal with, Your Worship. I would like to first of all welcome the members of the Heritage Planning Board, which includes our planning board, which is Barb Ramsey, Councillor Ramsey, Councillor Adams, the mayor's ex-official, myself, and the 3 citizen reps are Natalie Hashi, welcome, Carl Delaney, welcome, and our newly appointed Kate Cormier, welcome. They provide citizen input into the decision, and we're required to have a Heritage Planning Board that would make recommendation to Council based on buildings that have perceived heritage significant in the city. So we want to be sure we're following the appropriate due processes here. So tonight we will be looking at 4 properties, and we'll deal with them each individually by resolution. The process will be, I will read the recommendation into the record, ask staff for any comments, then we will refer to the package that was sent out. We'll table that. We won't read that into the record. I think all council and all planning board and Heritage Planning Board received that information, so hopefully everybody did their due diligence and has read it. And then we will go through each motion individually and make recommendation to council based on those motions. So without further ado, we'll read the documents into the record here, find the right pages, a lot of pages. Okay. So the recommendation dated August 4th for the Heritage Planning Board, subject building permit demolition review. Supporting explanation, the purpose of the review is to determine the potential heritage impacts on the city's historic Water Street District and Heritage District Overlay Zone. Background. Building permit applications with intent for demolition were received on July 14th, 2020 for properties at 285 Water Street, the Royal Bank / Purple Parrot Building, 4 Summer Street, Crockett Gallant Building, 8 Summer Street, the Cook Building, and 12 Summer Street, the Regent Building. 2 of the buildings are in the Downtown District 1 zone, and 2 are located in the Downtown District 4 zone. The subject properties are not city-designated heritage properties. Report. Under Section 22.15 of the zoning bylaw, when a building permit with the intent for demolition is received regarding buildings in Downtown District 1 zone or in Downtown District 4 zone, the Heritage Planning Board and Council shall review the applications. Under Section 3.3 of the Heritage Conservation Bylaw, the Heritage Planning Board shall make a recommendation to Council on heritage conservation issues. Staff prepared background information on the subject properties, which was circulated to all members of the Heritage Planning Board and to Council. The information was circulated on Thursday, July 30th, in preparation for this meeting. Technical service staff reviewed the applications and provided supporting documentation to the Heritage Planning Board and Council for their review. While the subject properties are not city-designated heritage properties, they are located in the Heritage District and may have potential heritage impacts. The Heritage Conservation Plan identifies Council's policies. Council's policy is to, H2, sustain and enhance the full cultural, social, and economic values of Summerside's heritage resources for present and future generations with active support from the city. H3, promote a balanced mix of cultural, social, and economic goals for heritage conservation. Examples of that: Summerside Pride, promote a sense of place and pride in Summerside; preservation of cultural artifacts, preserve heritage artifacts for their cultural memorization and historical ways of life and unique aesthetic values; livable urban environment, promote a livable urban environment enriched by a diversity of old and new; downtown revitalization, capitalize on heritage attractions to promote economic revitalization of the downtown business district; strong inner neighborhoods, promote heritage resources as a vital component of strong inner city neighborhoods that are attractive places to live for all sectors of the home buyers and renters; tourism business development, promote the amenity values of our heritage resources to attract tourists and new business; heritage renovation industry, promote a local and exportable industry of heritage building restoration; H4, provide a comprehensive level of city support for recognizing, protecting, and promoting heritage resources that matches their considerable importance to the community; H5, take a coordinated approach to enhance Summerside heritage resources as an integrated whole, including setting up a heritage district for the central historic core of the city; H6, facilitate renovations or adopt heritage buildings to meet contemporary needs that are compatible with their historical character; H7, encourage appropriate redevelopment of supporting district properties to enhance the heritage district's overall appearance and aid in its revitalization; H8, encourage community buy-in by continuing to engage interested citizens in heritage conservation, offering incentives to heritage property owners, investing in heritage district improvements, and generally promoting the community awareness of the importance of heritage conservation. The subject buildings have been renovated a number of times over the years, and the distinguishing feature of the buildings have been lost as a result. The 4 buildings being reviewed have been vacant for 7 years or more and have fallen into disrepair. Reduced development activity in the downtown core will work against the survival of our heritage resources that exist. The city will ensure the future development for this site will comply with Council's policies and the city's bylaws. Future redevelopment of the properties will require review by the Heritage Planning Board. And there's a map of the Heritage District overlay zone, Your Worship, that I would put into the record as well. The report that Council, that staff has prepared is attached, and we would table that. All Council and all the Heritage Board have received that prior to the meeting. So there is, Your Worship, that I will read into the record. We had one letter from the Summerside and Area Historical Society that I will read into the record, just so that it's recorded, Your Worship. And this was received on the 31st of July. And it's to Mayor Basil, Stewart, and Council. Your Worship, Mayor Stewart, and Council members, On Tuesday, July 21st, 2020, members of the Summerside and Area Historical Society had a meeting at EPTEC Center concerning the recent news release that the City of Summerside is making preparation to demolish 4 historic Summerside downtown properties on the corner of Summer and Water Street. These being the former Regent Theatre, the Cook Insurance Building on Summer Street, the Crockett Building, and the former Royal Bank Building on Water Street. And that the city has purchased these buildings at a cost of more than $900,000 and will tear them down next summer to make way for potential new development. The Summerside and Area Historical Society is of the opinion that the Summerside City Council needs to consider the importance of Summerside's heritage and its history. The Summerside and Area Historical Society is not against development, but rather that this development be in harmony with the history and heritage of the city. The Summerside and Area Historical Society believes that Mayor and Council should immediately review the municipal cultural plan completed by TCI management consultants prior to any demolition occurring and should follow their recommendations. The City of Summerside has a large sign on the corner of Heather Moyse Drive and Water Street, welcoming people to our historic downtown. Should the proposed demolition occur, you would be able to count on one hand the number of historic buildings that would remain on Water Street, which is certainly not sufficient to attract visitors to our downtown and preserve our streetscape. An example of this is as follows. Crockett's and the old Royal Bank, if they must be demolished, should have the street frontages saved so that there is a historical reminder of these heritage sites. A few years ago, another heritage property, the Holman Homestead, was slated for demolition, but was saved in the nick of time by the efforts of members of the Summerside Historical Society and others interested people who supported them. The Holman Homestead is now a very popular historic site for visitors and residents to visit, to sample homemade ice cream, and is a very important link to our past. Preservation of our city's history and heritage must not be sacrificed for new development, otherwise we will lose our identity, and that's signed by Peter Holman. Enter that into the record as well, Your Worship.
Could I just mention something to that, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly.
You mentioned the Holman building. That wasn't suggested that it be demolished by the city. It was by the owner of the property at the time. Just for the record, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I would ask if staff have any additional comments before we're in I think we'll deal with these one at a time. We'll put the motion on the floor and then have a discussion on each of them individually as we move forward. So, any additional comments from staff? Aaron?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think you highlighted again. There's a large package that went out that gives a lot of pros and cons, and as well as statements from the official plan and other documents that allow you to debate each of the policies that we were trying to consider and have a good discussion on each of them, and hopefully come up to some decisions and recommendations to move forward to council.
Thank you, Aaron. Okay, so if it's the meeting's wish, we'll deal with them each individually. I guess the appropriate way of dealing with it is to put the motion on the floor and then have the debate and discussion. So the first motion is it's a Heritage Planning Board recommendation, and the building permit applicable for the demolition of 285 Water Street be recommended to be approved by council, and that's the Royal Bank Purple Parrot building. So if we had a mover and or seconder for that, then we could move forward with debate.
I'm sorry. I'm just wondering if the city could fill in what the future plans are for this site, if there's going to be any discussion. I'm not sure that it's appropriate to deal with each building one at a time when you're proposing that all 4 be demolished, that perhaps we need a large-scale look at what the future plans are for this site before we can look at each building individually. I'm just curious what the goal is in the plans and what is in development right now.
And that's a fair question. I guess from our perspective, we would ask maybe staff to jump in here, but there is a developer who has an interest in developing the properties, which would be a combination of commercial and residential use. So I don't know if staff have anything else to add to that. Mike?
Maybe, are you getting a microphone there? Okay, just so everything is recorded.
So the only thing I will add is the rationale behind purchasing the properties was part of a two-phase process, one being to address the aging infrastructure underneath those properties in the 4 blocks. And once that was complete, then there was several developers that had expressed interest in redeveloping that full block with a mixed-use project downtown. But that's the plan to move forward.
Commercial and residential.
So I don't know if that's providing satisfactory explanations of how things will move forward. The other critical piece in all this is that nothing can happen from a development perspective without coming back to the Heritage Planning Board. So the Heritage Planning Board will need to make a recommendation to council on any future development as well.
I just wondered as well if there's an opportunity, I know staff had opportunity to speak. I'm just wondering if individual members of the citizen members of the Heritage Planning Board have opportunities to share their thoughts on this process, or are we going straight into the recommendations?
No, you're certainly welcome at any point to express your thoughts and your views, and we would never stifle anybody from expressing their views. I can assure you that. Yeah. So, you know, if the meeting wishes not to deal with them as individual resolutions, then we can deal with them as one resolution. If you want to deal with them as a whole, I'm not. I just think that there's probably different points of debate for each of the individual properties. So I think we had thought that it might be easier to deal with them one at a time. So I guess we'd be looking for the direction from the meeting how they want to handle that. If you're happy dealing with it as per the original plan, dealing with 4 individual motions, or would you prefer to deal with it all as one motion and have a debate on the whole thing?
But the overall plan, I believe, calls for all of the properties, does it not?
Yes.
To encompass. So, yeah, I'm just wondering why we would debate each one individually.
And I guess the rationale behind that was probably that there may be 1 or 2 properties that there may be more debate relating to than the others. So, yeah.
And I would agree with that as well. I think each building does have its own unique challenges that we need to debate, but I was just hoping for a overview of the whole project and to kind of have a sense of that going forward, because we're not just talking about, we are talking about individual properties, but we are talking about the large plot of land that will be left afterwards.
You know, as the answers you've received satisfactory to satisfy your concerns around sort of the overall.
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments and just the documentation that we had and what I've read online through local newspapers and CBC. I just had some questions, and I think the main point I would like to make is to quote from the City of Summerside's Urban Core Plan, where we're talking about the historic Water Street Downtown Core District Number 1, and this area represents historic Water Street Downtown Commercial Core Area. It is the hub of our main street with retail shops, finance, restaurants, and offices at street level, and in some cases residential apartments on upper levels. I'm going to skip ahead. It is the streetscape and buildings that provide this area its historic character, and efforts need to be focused on conservation. Development must be sensitive to our past. Rejuvenation and repurposing are the primary objectives. Demolition should only be an option where other alternatives have proven to not be viable. So I'm just thinking today maybe our role here is to discuss all of the options for these properties, including rejuvenation and repurposing, not just the demolition, as according to the urban core plan, that would be our last resort. So in that case, we might need to be looking at the individual buildings as we've proposed, because of course they are in different states of disrepair. My concern as a citizen representative of the Heritage Planning Board, one of my concerns is that demolition of all 4 buildings would create a significant hole of the landscape at a key intersection of downtown. When Kelly's Flower Shop building was demolished, and I understood the reasons behind that, it was in dire state. However, I think we all noticed its absence once it was gone. It left a very large hole in our Water Street landscape. And I believe that these 4 properties at a very major intersection of our downtown will leave an even larger hole. I know that the intent is to redevelop that property. However, we've had other tracts of land in downtown Summerside sit absent and vacant for years. So my concern would be that if we are demolishing buildings that could have potential for renovation and rejuvenation, on the possibility that we may be building something new in its place, I would feel there would have to be maybe greater commitment to building something on that property before it was demolished on speculation that we may have a developer interested. So that's one of my concerns, maybe.
Yeah, and that's a very, very valid concern. I think, and others can jump in, I don't want to dominate here, but Counsel, I believe, has done significant due diligence, and that there's a significant comfort level within Counsel, and that there are, as Mike indicated, there are developers in the waiting, should it be shovel ready, and there's some municipal infrastructure that needs to be done prior to that, and so I think Council, I believe, is fairly confident, as confident as we could be. We certainly wouldn't move forward with this if we didn't feel that it would happen in a timely fashion. And Mike maybe can talk a little bit about timelines, because the timelines are very tight to get this done.
Thank you. So just directly to your point, we do actually have a development agreement in place to redevelop those properties once they are what we call shovel ready. Part of the barrier to moving those projects forward is twofold. One is the current condition of the buildings themselves, and the second is the infrastructure underneath. And Council has felt that in order to move downtown forward, we would take a leadership role in addressing those 2 initial barriers. But there is a purchase and sale agreement post-demolition for the redevelopment of those properties right away.
Councillor Ramsey, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor. I don't know who was first, but Councillor Ramsey.
Hi, Natalie. And I'm just going to talk about a couple of your concerns, okay, and what so I think there's been so many renovations done over the years to those buildings that I think they've lost their historic look anyway. I think that's gone. And what I would hope is that when it is redeveloped, that, and you guys will be involved in that, is that we can have something that looks like Summerside downtown used to look like. Like maybe we can, make sure that could, put it back that way, because I don't know how we're going to get it back the other way with the shape that the buildings are in right now. And the shape, and so that brings me to the next concern, is that the shape the buildings are in right now, I think a hole in the ground would look better than the shape those buildings are in right now. I think with the amount of complaints we've gotten from the citizens in Summerside, since I became councillor, like just really concerned about the look that it's giving in our downtown. Honestly, I think a hole in the ground might look better. That's just my opinion on that. But and I know there's something in place, and you know, he's already explained that to you. So, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there with when we do go ahead and have those the buildings put up in the future, that we can bring some of Summerside downtown back. Yeah, that's all I have.
Deputy Mayor.
And Natalie and the rest of the committee members, I believe that as a council and the city of Summerside, we certainly very much want to see the integrity of heritage saved in any way that it can possibly be done. But as Councillor Barb and others have seen over the years, this area or this block of properties has been talked about many different times and looked at, and how could it be salvaged, whatever. But there never seemed to be any people coming forth that wanted to do the, say for example, the heritage restoration, and that takes a very special kind of restoration. And so over the talking, as has been mentioned, many people have over the years seen it as just sitting there vacant and becoming more and more unsalvageable. And I think the point that drives home, you know, where we're at is that Mr. Holman, in some of the information that we're reading on his comments, he said that Peter Holman acknowledges the Regent and Cook buildings are almost certainly too far gone to save, but he believes the Crockett building is not, and says the old bank next door is a heritage landmark. And he also indicated that it was a shame to see those particular two ones go. And I think there was some comment about the Royal Bank building, if there was something around the front exterior of it, like if there could be any way some of that front piece of it could be saved, or with the Crockett's building. But in all honesty, over the many years that it has been discussed and looked at, council has not, former councils and this council, we've never really had anybody come forward and say we would love to do something, because it's very costly. What we have run into is people saying that there's so much underground infrastructure work needed that that's a monumental cost before they even get into a project. So we found ourselves in that situation where there was no leadership to take place to get it ready. So hence that's why the city looked at doing those properties to get them ready for a developer to come along. So.
Any other questions, particularly Councillor? Councillor on back over at my right.
No worries. Thanks, Councillor. Welcome, Kate. Congratulations. I guess I'll speak maybe to downtown Water Street as a whole. I know we've all seen those old photos on Facebook, and without mentioning names, some of us have even seen them in person. But I think when and where possible, it's certainly very important to attempt to preserve specifically that street, because it's a very historic street, as it is in those photos, because you can recognize a lot of the things in those old pictures as they are today, especially the RBC building and Crockett's, of course. And it certainly would be a shame to lose a couple more. But I think if it can't be done safely, then obviously there's alternatives like demolition. But I really do think, where possible, that we need to work with the Heritage Planning Board and downtown to preserve that. Really, it's the look that you see, that when you look at those old photos and you can stand on the same corners and point out some of the same buildings. And I think it's important that we do what we can, when we can, and when we can do so safely to preserve those images. So you can take a photo today, and 100 years from now, you can see buildings from today and buildings from what we now see in photos. So just wanted to make that comment, I guess, and express that I do feel that it's important that we preserve what we can, where we can, and when we can, safely.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask a
Your
question.
Worship, Your Worship?
I think there was mentioned, maybe in your remarks, that vacant for 7 years. I thought there were some of them vacant for 12 years.
Some longer than that, but
So it's been a long time trying to get something
Yeah.
done, you know,
yeah.
with,
Yeah,
how they're unsightly and unsafe. And
Yeah.
they were talking about, I believe, one, I'm not sure if it's Phil, but people saw raccoons in them and everything else, you know, so it's council's been dealing with it for years to try to get something done, and John Q. Public Developer out there is not coming forward until they have the space to do it. So that's, council took everything into consideration when they're, and talked about it for a long time before they decided to take leadership and clean up the mess, and clean up the unsafe buildings, and to try to get some people living downtown, to try to get some tax base, and there's a list that long of things council considered.
Thank you, Your Worship. Natalie?
I just had a question for Fred Horn. If Fred, would you know how many buildings on Water Street would be more than 100 years old?
I don't know offhand the actual number there, but I know that we have in the recent past identified about 20 buildings along Water Street between the rails that are of interest and significance, and I don't even know if the region, of course, is back beyond Water Street, so the impact there is not so great. But falling within the original cutoff date, pre-1940, there were about 20 buildings, and then if you can take some other buildings as well, because when we established the cutoff date as 1940, that was like 17 years ago. So now we're up to 57, folks, believe it or not.
Yeah. Thank you. Good.
I was just curious on that point, because we did make the point that, or I think it was this Historical Society made the point, that there's not that many buildings of this vintage left. So if, and I understand all of council's reasonings, and I am for development of downtown. I was part of the Urban Core Plan Development Task Force, so I understand the push and pull of all of this. I just would hate for a building like Crockett's, which I do believe has life left in it, to be demolished for no reason or without exploring all avenues for preserving it, or the same with the facade. I've seen the photographs of the bank building. It's not impressive how it stands now, but those are the two properties I believe the Historical Society has singled out as their interest. It doesn't sound like, from their point of view, that there's much debate around the Regent building or the Cook's building, but I think just to address some concerns about those other two properties, that if there is life left in them, have we explored all of the options for those buildings? And I do understand the city's perspective on the infrastructure point. Is just making sure that the ends justify the means, or the means justify the ends.
certainly appreciate that view, and get other councillors to talk, and maybe we can speak to it afterwards. But Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Councillor McFeely. And thank you, Natalie. Natalie was on the committee with me when we did the urban plan. The last council, previous council, was very close to putting together a plan with developers to redevelop that area, but the numbers just didn't fit because, you know, unless they had a brownfield to do it, the dollars just didn't work. This plan that this council has worked on, I've had two sides of it, but I think this is, if we're looking to improve our downtown, and I don't want to take away the historic part of it, whether there's any way that, you know, whether it's Crockett's or the Gallant, I think it was a Gallant Pharmacy at first, wasn't there something, that building? Whatever, I don't know if we can work with the developers to have, you know, whether there's a facade thing that we can do. I think it was suggested with the Peter Holman letter. No, whether we can work with the, if they have to be demolished, to work with the developers to come up with some kind of to retain some of the heritage part of it, so that it's not completely forgotten.
Yeah, I think,
Well,
you know, one of the nice things about us having the ownership is that we can control some of that stuff to a certain extent. We can't encumber to the developers to the point where they can't do their work. But at the same time, by owning it, we can control some of that. If we didn't own it, we have no control over it. Councillor Ramsey.
so this will be my last, but, and this came out late this afternoon, so maybe a number of councillors didn't get a chance to read this email from Aaron regarding Crockett's building. Like, it won't sustain anything above it. Like, it's, and Aaron, I guess I can let you.
We'll get Aaron to speak to the engineering piece of work that was done.
On Crockett's, yeah, because that seems to be the one that you, and I know it looks like it's a building maybe that could be saved, but when I read this report, I just went over to talk to Aaron about it and said, did I read this properly? So maybe Aaron, I don't know. Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Ramsey. We had asked a structural engineer to look at the building, again, based on all the different scenarios of what if and which building, and that appeared to be the one that had, I guess, was registered and was the one that was most recently occupied. And again, so we had asked a local structural engineer to look at the building and say, what are you seeing as far as the existing building? And they were working out of province last week, but got here back on Friday, so they went in on Friday afternoon and provided that email on Monday as what their findings were. Basically, if I don't have it in front of me, but the gist was that there was the existing in the basement, the existing floor system was timber, and has been supported in a number of places after the initial construction, because it's evident by numerous structural supports that are there that are just varying from say modern screw jacks to sawn posts to a variation of different things that are just here and there supporting loads that obviously sagged over time. And then when you went up to the next floor to say, when you walk into Crockett's, there's obvious structural members that are supporting the second floor, and those locations in the basement, those loads aren't directly below it, so that's kind of getting into detail. But he's saying as far as the ability to build and on top of it as well, the other part was that the existing loading, if you go back to what your statements are, what your wishes for the downtown was for higher density commercial on the ground floor, multiple levels of residential are in some of the verbiages of the statements that you're saying and what you were hoping to rejuvenate or the new downtown to look like to get people down there. The existing ground floor of that building wouldn't take your commercial loading, and you wouldn't be able to do residential on top of it and multiple residential on top of it. And in order to do so, you'd have to totally support anything above it. And as was mentioned, there was previous proposals were brought forward with, they couldn't make the numbers work on 2-story, and they were having troubles making them work on 4-story. As far as on that site with the existing stuff was to get a higher density residence, you'd need to be going multiple levels, and you couldn't support it. Anything you did over that building would have to totally non-encumber anything onto the existing, even though the building is sound for its age, for the age it is on a 2-story building, it's a flat roof. And again, you have to, it wouldn't meet any of the current standards, which was probably understandable, but when you have a flat roof and the snow loads and stuff that would be on it are in modern codes are different than so that's some of the things that they were highlighting in their review as far as in that email.
Thank you, Aaron, very much. Councillor Snow.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here and all your work. And Aaron, just basically I was getting ready to ask the question, have we looked into what possibilities we do have. I don't know if, I know what you're saying, Aaron, about building on top, but is there any way to save some of the facade to attach to an existing, do you know, I think that's what is being asked of when in Peter's letter.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's a possibility, and if that is, has there been any discussions with the proposed developers that have expressed interest? Obviously, the last number of weeks this has gotten into the media a little bit, and there's been some talk around the historical significance of those buildings. So I wonder if there's been any discussions with those developers that.
I myself haven't had a lot of those discussions, but I haven't had any discussions with them. But again, as was pointed out by the chairperson, is that in your revised rules, anything in this downtown one zone, all developments are to come through staff review, heritage planning review, and council. As far as that, so that's why the demolition permit is here, which would be considered a development, the same as a building would be, or a renovation would be considered a development. That would come through here. So we haven't had those discussions. But I went back and, as they mentioned, the Crockett's building is, you know, it had in the synopsis or the rationale, it had like, you know, the first was a metal clad building, and then it was the ultra modern, I think it was black glazed glass with aluminum. Like, I mean, one of those types may be able to be incorporated into the design of a future renovated building, to say that's the look you want to try and incorporate to mimic, I'll say, that what that building was at that date. You know, that's certainly avenues that could be looked at. Again, whether there's a certain area is going to be a stone facade or on that street frontage to look like the bank portion, or, you know, there may be options to incorporate those things into an overall design or redevelopment.
Just can I make
Okay.
one final
Certainly,
comment,
Your Worship.
Mr. Chairman, and I think as I did read that report today that Mr. McDonald is talking about, and in regards to I believe it was the Crockett building, that I guess the reason it hasn't been developed for the reasons we talked about, it was going to be too costly for a developer to come in to make it sound enough to develop, and the cost was so high because, as Aaron had mentioned, the building code back whenever that was built, it's not the same as it is now, and so nothing would be suitable for today's building code. So if it's left the way it is, the developers were saying, to my knowledge, in the past, that it was just too costly to prepare it for major developments. So like I said earlier, and then I'm going to be finished here, Mr. Chairman, but this council and the last councils for 7 to 12 years, whatever it was, looked at every which way possible to see how we can get some redevelopment downtown. And so this is the decision the council made, that feel something will happen to get people living downtown. And you can have all the nice sidewalks and the fancy these things and those things, but you need people. And then when you have people, it will draw other businesses. So council took into consideration many, many things. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I guess that kind of brings us to, unless there's more questions. Natalie?
Just a quick question. What's the timeline on the demolition? If they're approved today, what's the...
If it's approved, well, what we're doing today is recommending the council. So the recommendation would go to our council meeting on August 17th. And then I don't know in terms of the timelines for the issuing of the permit.
If I could add, simultaneously, it's a fairly large, I'll say a complex demolition. We issued a call for tenders for demolition to see, again, we don't know what the volume of this, as far as how long it would be, or what the availability of people of that specialty are available. So we won't know that until tenders close. So we said, if we do that parallel to this, we would at least hopefully have an answer between the planning board and the council. So if that question comes up when they're at council time, they'll know, okay, here's the tenders we received. Here is a time frame that's doable by a successful bidder. So the tender is out. It's to close tomorrow. It would have to go to council for award. So at least then we would know. We could say what we think as far as what it would be, but we'll hear that from the actual contractors if the tender's closed tomorrow and everything else is.
So it could be as early as this fall, or it could be as late as next year?
That's my understanding. We'll know better when we open, but based on the availability of contractors to do this work and what else needs to be done, and also, again, on council's direction.
Thank you.
Councillor Snow?
Aaron, was part of the tender package, was there anything referencing timeframes from a city standpoint?
I think just a start and end was there, so that if there only was it is pretty complex for this to be done, as far as we're not sure how many companies can handle this type of thing. If we put a time frame in and the one or two successful ones couldn't meet it, they may not bid it. So we just left a start and an end on their availability when they could do it. They may say, look, it's better to do this in the winter. I don't know, but.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
We'll just get the mic on there. It's on now.
Get you to speak to the mic there, please, Carl.
It's possible for the frontage of the Crockett building to be reserved before demolition to keep the front. I know the inside's gonna have to be torn out if you wanna put 2 or 3 stories on there, but if you could preserve the front, the Crockett building would be part of the heritage. So the inside, you look at the picture in here, I was one of the kids standing up for the first movie of the region.
Well, I guess it would be...
And that would have to be
yeah.
a part of the demolition contract too as well, if you decided to do that.
Yeah,
Somehow.
whether it can be preserved intact or not is...
Well, they can do things today that...
It's an issue,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Then it'd be a little bit of heritage, because we're gonna lose it all anyway.
I'm not, I guess that's a question you would need to ask the demolition experts.
And the developer.
We would have an opportunity as a heritage planning board to look at what the development is going to be down the road, so. But if heritage planning board recommendation to council was that, preserve what we can preserve type of thing.
As if I was a developer, that's my idea would be to have condos on the top and the bottoms would be all stores. So you could have another Crockett's jewelry there as well.
Yeah, well, exactly.
I'm just.
Exactly, so I think at the end of the day, everybody wants the same thing here, and, that it's a real, I just find as a counselor, it's a real balancing act between kind of preserving our past and the need to revitalize the downtown, because if we do nothing, we'll be here in 10 years and it'll further deteriorate.
Brian, would it be fair to say even to replicate some of what was there? If you couldn't salvage it?
Yeah, we just need to be,
like that's,
yeah, I agree, and I think
like,
those are, I think what the city, I think, can do is make our best efforts to make those things happen. You can't encumber a developer to the point where they say, well, we can't do this. But at the same point, you want to make sure that it's front and center in their design and planning and those types of things. So, you know, if it's just a Crockett building, that's the issue. We can perhaps move forward with the 3 other motions. If it's the meeting's desire that the Crockett motion reflect that they want to try to preserve what we can preserve out of it, then you know we can amend the motion to reflect that. You know.
Okay, I guess you're prepared to,
Well, there's 3 motions here, or 4 motions here, Your Worship. The first one, and unless there's more questions or points that people want to make, I want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to speak if they wish. So,
Brian, can I just?
Certainly, Councillor.
Just on your last comment, the only concern I would have with holding that part back is just that, holding it up, right? I mean.
I wasn't suggesting holding it up. I was suggesting amending the motion to reflect that, you know, best efforts be made to.
Right, okay.
I mean.
Okay, perfect.
To
oh, perfect, okay.
I don't know what the right wording is.
Yeah,
but,
work with the developer, whatever.
Yeah.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah. So, so the first motion, Your Worship, was for 285 Water Street, the Royal Bank Purple Parrot Building. The Heritage Planning Board recommendation on that building. The building permit application for the demolition of 285 Water Street be recommended to be approved by council. So.
move by yourself,
Yes, I can move that, Your Worship.
seconded by whom? Councillor Ramsey? Okay, you go
Before-
ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, before you do, I better jump in just now as opposed to later. Are we all generally under agreement that what we just said for Crockett's isn't possible for the Royal Bank Purple Parrot Building? Because that's a very unique front as well. I know that has been deteriorated a lot more, but we just mentioned the Crockett Building. Are we going to make an effort to at least request or find out if the same can be done for that one?
This is voted on by the planning board, right? It's not a council
Right.
vote.
The only planning board would be, Heritage Planning Board would be voting on this, but that's a valid question. I don't know how people feel about that.
Same thing, we could have the conversation.
Don't see it as quite in the same light as the Crockett building. It was built in the 50s. It's not, 100 years old type of thing. So I know I'm getting looks over there. I know.
Okay, just it was mentioned that that was one of the 2.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Deputy Mayor?
I guess what I'm wondering too is there anybody in the community, I believe there's somebody that lives on Spring Street that does a lot of historical restoration work, carpentry, but unique historical. I'm just wondering if there is somebody in the community that would be able to take a look at the one that we're questioning, the Royal Bank building, just to have a look at it so that it's kind of like that second sober look to see, is there anything there that could be salvaged as far as, like for a replica or something that could be salvaged out of that building before, not like out of the Royal Bank building, if there was.
Oh, I'm sure there's expertise that can look at that. So I guess if we want to tie the motion to.
There is a heritage carpentry program at Holland College. Those instructors are very knowledgeable. This wouldn't be the first time a city, Halifax, of course bigger budget than ours, but Halifax does this sort of thing all the time. Leave the facade, wait for the developer to build something attached to the facade. I'm not personally aware of similar situations in Charlottetown, but it has been done before, and the serious developer I think would consider a request to incorporate that into their plans, but that isn't maybe in a something that needs a little more investigation.
Okay, so you have a motion, I guess.
We have a
you're the
motion,
chair,
I'm
so
just
go
not
ahead.
sure that people are prepared to move forward with the motion. That, you know,
Could we
what's our way forward here? Is there a piece to add to that motion? And I'm thinking about something like, and the city make best effort to, somebody help me with the wording, retain,
preserve the street frontage on Water Street and Spring Street of the Crockett and Royal Bank buildings?
Where possible.
That'll be through discussion with the developer, through
Yeah.
discussion with everybody, because
Yeah.
last thing we want, like we've been saying, is for nothing to happen. But then again, once we start
we can't-
demolishing,
yeah.
you can't build what
Yeah.
you had back. No, you can't tear it
Yeah.
down and it still be there, that's impossible.
No.
That being said, on a new development, like we've mentioned, there could be replica faces
Yeah,
put
but
on,
there's-
whatever.
there's-
So there's lots of areas to go down that we
Yeah.
could, but the last
There's-
thing we wanna do is start handcuffing as well, so it's
Well,
a
there's-
juggling act.
There's two pieces to this. One is the demolition, and then the second piece will, down the road, will be the development. But what I'm hearing here is what can we preserve out of the demolition that may be utilized in the development later on, if anything. And I'm suggesting that, you know, the motion, is there a need to reflect that in the motion?
You know, Councillor, this building is a good example of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The portion that was built onto it was designed similar to 1886 or whatever, and it matches in very nicely. It wasn't just a shiny tin building. There was a lot of effort put on by staff and council and the engineers to design the building. These ceilings out there were the 1886 ceilings that they got in the old building and connected it, and we get a lot of compliments on how the building was designed, and so this is an example of how we can design
Yeah.
things.
My initial thought when I'm sitting here thinking is, obviously we want to see development move ahead, and I totally understand the historical significance of those buildings. We had some great announcements there today where we got some federal and provincial funding. Is there any funding through the federal government for historical type things that might help entice the developer to keep that forefront? Because that's a lot what drives development, is extra dollars sitting around through whatever program that we could have. So if there was a program sitting out there waiting for some federal money to be spent, that might be something to look at. But again, we own the buildings now. The last thing I want to do is see something happen in one of those buildings. So I do feel we need to move quickly and decisively on whatever we do and not hold it up any further. But it's just a thought that maybe during this process, as we're getting ready to tear down what we decide we're tearing down, that we look at all those funding options that might enhance that probability, especially for a developer.
And the other thing I think we need to keep in mind is that before anything is developed there, we're all going to have a say in what goes on there. Like, so we have to, we have to kind of keep that in mind, that if they can't actually save what's there, I don't know, and then maybe they can, but like when they start knocking it down, I don't know where they're going to take the front of the Purple Parrot and put it until they're ready to build. Do you know what I mean?
No, and that's not the intent. I think the intent is,
They're like to,
whether there's bricks, whether you replicate it, whether,
but yeah,
like, the Crockett facade is 1970s. I mean,
right.
I'm not sure the historical significance of a 1970s facade. But at the same time, for me, it's about respecting
Exactly.
the people, the Crockett's and the Glenn's,
Right.
and trying to make sure that's adequately reflected in any development.
And that's what we will have control over, all of us, yeah.
And I'm also curious what is behind the facade at the Crockett's building.
Yeah, that's valid, yeah.
I wasn't living in Summerside in the 70s. Often when a building is renovated, instead of taking something off, you just layer on top of it. So I'm wondering how many layers are on that onion. I noticed that they carefully took the steel brackets and molded them, so I'm wondering if the wood trim or steel trim that was behind that is still there.
Could be.
In behind. But I would be curious with that building, if we went ahead with a demolition or if we went ahead with a restoration of the facade, to peel back the layers, remove the stucco and see what's there. But that's kind of my bent. I love peeling back wallpapers and discovering what wallpapers were popular in the 1800s because there's just layer upon layer. So I'm curious what is still on the Crockett building that we just can't see. We're assuming it's been modernized and it's gone, but it might be underneath the various layers.
Well, there was 4 major renovations. So you know, you're right. God knows what's back there. So, anyways, to move forward here. At least I'm hearing we may not get unanimous support for moving forward, but we need to respect the rules of democracy and the majority move forward. But I am hearing kind of a common theme, I think, and all kind of agree that if we can save what we can save, and I don't know what impact that has on a tender for demolition.
Time and cost. If you're going to try and salvage, you got 2 things. You want to try and take stone off. You're going to salvage it. You don't know when you're going to be ready to develop. You're going to have to increase your cost, what they plan on doing with machinery to manual. You're then going to have to take off pieces that are going to have to be numbered and then stored for a year and try to get them shown to a future architect that's going to try and incorporate that into the structure of the new building. You know, that has been maybe once or tried to do once or twice on PI that I'm aware of. I say it has been done outside where they've taken the whole facade, pinned it, and tried to do, say in Halifax, as was noted, take the whole facade off and leave it in place and pin it as well. But again, that's not what's in your demolition tender for now. What would have to be gone through with the successful bidder and trying to get an additional cost to do that method of preservation.
To comment on
so it would increase the cost significantly.
Councillor Bryan, if I could just say, the Heritage Carpentry Program at Holland College, they do partnerships with municipalities and nonprofit organizations to restore buildings. They will often do it for just the cost of materials because it's a learning opportunity for their students. So that may be something that could be an avenue pursued, whether they would peel back the layers of our onion. It's just another option if we're concerned about increasing the cost. Like Councillor Snow mentioned, that's an avenue where we could get some support for a little less cost.
Thank you, Natalie.
I think you should be able to get that worded, the general feeling here worded in the motion that those things be considered as time goes on, and everything has to come back to council anyway. Excuse me. So I think from what I'm hearing in here that you should be able to get something in the motion that will take those considerations into consideration.
Yeah, I'm just not sure the exact wording here, Your Worship. So the Heritage Planning Board recommendation, the building permit application for demonstration 285 Water Street be recommended to be approved by council, and that the city make efforts to explore options for preserving what is possible to preserve.
That's pretty clear.
Pardon?
Salvageable pieces.
Okay. That's pretty clear. I think, Brian, the other Brian Harlick, can you get the wording out of, for a resolution afterwards in the minutes, so what's recorded, what's talked about is, everything is recorded here today, so we want to make it clear with the resolution that's being
And
moved.
I think it should also reflect that, I mean, at the end, if possible. You know, it may not be possible to do it. So.
So you have your mover and your seconder, sir? You have your mover, yourself, and Barb, or Councillor Ramsey, the seconder?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
And
floor
the
is
voting
yours.
members of planning board are myself and the three citizen representatives.
So
So this is a recommendation to council.
So you're calling for the vote? Is that what you're calling?
Yes. Yeah.
To bring our recommendation to council?
Yes.
As in the resolution?
Yeah. So you calling for the vote? You want me to?
Well, you're the chair, so go
Okay.
ahead.
Thank you. So you've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Pass unanimously. So that's the Purple Parrot building. For Summer Street, Crockett Gallant building, the Heritage Planning Board recommendation. The building permit application for demolition of 4 Summer Street be recommended to be approved by council, and I guess we would have the same additional wording onto that. Brian, I don't know if you have it there, if you could read it maybe, just so that we're all very clear.
Approved by council, and that the city make efforts to explore options to preserve the facade if possible.
It's the same as the last resolution.
Yeah. You have a mover for that motion, please? Moved by Councillor Ramsey, a seconder, Councillor Adams. You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried unanimously. The next one is Heritage Planning, 8 Summer Street, the Cook Building. Heritage Planning Board recommendation, the building permit application for the demolition of 8 Summer Street be recommended to be approved by council. I don't think there's any need for additional verbiage around that one.
Other than a mover and a second.
Moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Councillor Adams. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. And the final resolution is for 12 Summer Street, the Regent Building. Heritage Planning Board recommendation, the building permit application for the demolition of 12 Summer Street be recommended to be approved by council. Moved by, nice to have a citizen rep move a motion. moved by Kate, second by Carl. You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. And that concludes the business of the Heritage Planning Board for this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you. The folks are welcome to stay for our council. We have other committee meetings, but if that's it, you know.
And we know we will, well, it's, the Heritage Planning Board probably hasn't met in, well, this is your 3rd term, Natalie, so how many meetings have you had? Yeah, so it's not a busy committee, but you will be back certainly when the development plan comes in place, so you have an opportunity to review and provide your input into that.
And they're welcome to be here for the monthly meeting when there's.
And you're welcome, yes, the
recommendation.
monthly meeting when the recommendation goes to council.
And
So-
now you get a bird's eye view to see how much fun we have. Thank you.
Thanks.
So thank you, folks. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie, for your questions. They were great, very good, very good.
I think at this time we'll have the fire department come in and,
Yeah.
before we, Councillor Ramsey will let, the firefighters are here now. He's Councillor Drawn has gone after them.
I just wanted just to mention to everybody, I know for the committee of the whole, we have that booked for 5:30 for them to come in, but we're going to be running late.
Yeah.
But there's other agendas for committees, so I was just going to maybe send a note out, say maybe 6 o'clock, so they're not sitting here waiting. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Come right in, Chief. Sure, yeah, they can keep their 6 feet. We'll have some seats, some may have to stand, but
I suppose getting you one of that chair, you have a question.
You want to go in there, Ken?
I suppose getting you one of that chair might be another question.
no, anything possible.
There's a couple of chairs up here, folks.
Chief Ron?
There's a couple of chairs up here.
This is still on unrecorded. I guess Barb, we're still on YouTube, so we may as well. Yeah. Where's the chief? Right over here. Chief Ron, you're welcome to come up front here, and
I'm
you
good
can use it
here.
here, and we'll ask Councillor the chair to come forward as well. But do you want to speak from there first?
Yeah, I'm good here.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll do the picture. That's all right.
When they come up here, then yeah.
I'm not
Oh,
upfront
yeah,
type guy here.
Anyway, I guess we may as well call this special ceremony to order. I'd like to welcome the fire chief and the members of the fire department. And there's a special presentation to be made. And at this time, we'll turn it over to, you go ahead then. We'll be making some presentations and.
All right.
Sure. Come right up here and speak from the microphone.
You gonna stand or you can?
No, that'll pick it up there. Chief Ron Inman, you're on YouTube around the world. The floor is yours, sir.
Just where I wanted to be, right up front.
Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to start off by thanking Krista for attending today. Also Mayor and Council for taking part in this portrait dedication. And special thanks to the members of the Summerside Fire Department, retired members, and the general public for being with us today. I'm so happy to see Krista here today because this dedication is honoring such a valuable, respected, and driving force in our fire department for many years. Just to give a little history for those who aren't familiar with the events taking place today, when an active member of the Summerside Fire Department passes, there's a portrait done, and the member's portrait will hang on the wall of the fire hall in which he served. We received Brian's portrait in March, but due to COVID-19 restrictions, we were unable to have this presentation until now. It will be an honor to see Brian's picture hanging on the wall at Station 2. A place where he spent many hours and loved doing so. His portrait will be a permanent fixture and serve as a remembrance to such a fine member of our community. Brian served with St. Eleanor's and Summerside Fire for a combined 28 years. And we all know that what type of commitment this takes. Holidays, birthdays, family events, and basically on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I think I'd be pretty safe in saying that he never complained about this because he truly enjoyed the fire service. Actually, in all the years that I've known Brian, I don't think I've ever heard him complain about anything. Maybe Krista, you did, but I didn't. Looking back, I remember my first weekend duty as a captain on Engine 2. It was a Sunday afternoon. The call came in as a grass fire, but before arriving on scene, it turned into a car fire as well. pretty stressful for me. It was my first situation as a new captain, but when we pulled up on the scene, engine 4 was already on scene. Pre-connects were all pulled off, and he was in the process of charging the line. And I guess as I walked towards him, I must have had a bewildered look, because his response was, "I thought you might need a little bit more water," and a big smile to follow. I think this memory sums up of who Brian was. He was always there to help. We never had to ask, but we could always count on him being there. During one of the visits to Prince County Hospital, Brian mentioned that his t-shirts didn't fit and was wondering if we had any smaller ones. So of course I talked to the chief, and the next time some of us went up, we took the t-shirts up to Brian. And any time after that, when you saw Brian, he was proudly wearing one of his t-shirts. I think he'd be safe in saying that even on his worst day, he was still proud of being a member of the Summerside Fire Department. In closing, something that I feel good about this time as time goes on, as we retire from the department and the new members come onto the department, the younger generation will ask about these portraits that are on the wall. Stories will be told, and Brian's memory will live on forever. Thank you all for attending here today, and I'd like to ask Krista to come up for the portrait presentation.
Maybe we'll come down front.
Also, Mayor Basil and Councillor Barb, and I'm going to ask Captain Paul Kelly and firefighter Chris Ross, who were good friends of Brian's as well. And along with that, so that's the picture that's going to hang in Station 2, and this is the keeper picture. Yeah.
This was happening. I did not know I would be standing in front of all of you.
I thought I mentioned that.
No, no. But that's all right. You know, I was married to the speech maker. He could blow a speech off the top of his head, and some of the boys were telling me that. I think Clay was saying there a little while ago. But, you know, he never wrote a speech down. If he had to talk, he just got up, and whatever was off the top of his head, he'd just look out, see who was there, and spew. Yeah, I thought when you were talking about weekend duty, the first thing I think was the storm duties.
Oh, yes.
Nobody on this department went starving when Brian was on storm duty. I saw receipts. I totally. Yeah, he loved to feed you guys. And then if you guys ordered stuff he didn't like, he went and made sure the next time he was the one in charge.
Right.
I think he just kind of took over that job. I don't think anybody minds. No, he loved this fire department because as soon as he was 19, he joined up. I remember he was at my house, and then, oh, I gotta go join up. Okay, goodbye. I knew what I was getting into, so he's very, very service oriented, very devoted. Family, service, that was his life. If he wasn't in a tractor working home, or worried about somebody, or doing fire department things, or he was involved with our community council as well. They actually just named the boardroom after him, which I thought was very apropos, because if you knew Brian, the mouth was always going. Yeah, so. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to Chief Enman and all the members of the fire department. And it's great to see the former chief here for Jim Peters was chief for 47 or 48 or 100 years, however long it was. Great to see you, Chief. And some of the retired members. So again, this was a great presentation. And we thank the
my condolences. And I didn't know Brian personally, but seems like he was very much loved. And thank you for coming in this evening, surprise and all. And thank you for every firefighter in this room for all you do.
Bruce?
Thank you, Your Worship, and Krista. Brian was a very valuable member of the fire department, fire services in St. Helens. I think the chief said 28 years, and we really, knew Brian for quite a while, and much appreciated any chance we had in the service to, the St. Helens and to the Summerside Fire Department was very much appreciated. You should be very proud. Thank you.
Any other councillors? Floor is open. Thank you very much. You're all welcome to stay for the rest of the council meeting.
Nope, not tonight. I'm here. You're playing now. I don't know. They're probably winning by now. They're probably up there.
We're still on? We're still on YouTube.
He did a nice job of that.
Okay, thank you again, and all the best to the fire department. We're still on YouTube here, and we'll continue on with our council meeting, our committee meetings. I believe Tech Services was next. You're on, Council-
Yeah, I think,
and a firefighter himself, and what's your rank now? Kat?
just call me sir, that's fine.
Sir.
Yeah, planning board, I think, still has one item for Putters Street. That's why I was kind of caught
Oh,
off
sorry, I
guard
thought we
there.
were finished with planning board. Councillor McFeely, is still going.
He likes talking.
Okay, the planning board meeting of August 4th, we'll call to order, and we'll seek the approval of the agenda. I guess we'll let the agenda stand approved unless people have any issues with it. So we're dealing with the one and only thing on the agenda is the recommendation for Putter Street rezoning, Your Worship. And
Go ahead, sir.
the supporting explanation. The purpose of the zoning amendment is to allow high-density housing. The applicant is proposing 4-unit row housing or 4-unit townhousing, depending on the proposed building layout. Row house means a building that is divided into 3 or more vertical adjacent joined dwelling units, separated by a vertical wall, with each unit being constructed directly on grade. Row houses do not require individual public utilities for each unit, street frontage, and cannot be subdivided. Townhouses means a building that is divided into 3 or more vertically adjacent dwelling units separated by a vertical concrete or masonry firewall, with each unit being constructed directly on grade. Townhouses require individual public utilities and street frontage for each dwelling unit and can be further subdivided as per section 8.15. Background: an application was received from McDuff Holding Inc. for a portion of PID number 1102318, lots 19 to 26 and 43 to 50, to amend the city zoning bylaw from low-density residential R2 zone to high-density residential R4 zone. A public meeting was held on July 21st, 2020, and council gave first reading on the same date. The report under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw: when planning board reviews a zoning bylaw amendment, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. A, conformity with all requirements of this bylaw. Staff comment: if council approves the zoning map amendment from R2 to R4, the applicant will be permitted to construct row houses, townhouses, or any other permitted use in the R4 zone subject to R4 development standards. Conformity with the official plan. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment: the official plan contains policies for high-density housing locations. Section 5.2.2, residential zones. 5.2.2, location of high-density housing. Council's intentions about locating high-density housing are important to residents concerned about potential location of row houses and apartment buildings into their predominantly low-density neighborhood. To help allay these fears, these concerns, council lays out specific policies below on where they may allow future high-density housing, some which elaborate on their foregoing policies for special planning and development areas. Location criteria. Council's criteria for locating high-density housing in the city of Summerside include a desirability of infilling properties which are already partly developed for higher density housing. The desirability of locating high-density housing close to jobs, community facilities and services, and of promoting pedestrian access. Opportunities for maximizing the number of opportunities for scenic views through higher density and taller residential buildings, but with protection of adequate view planes. Benefits of locating high-density housing in difficult-to-service areas so they can help distribute expensive development costs among more users. Opportunities for innovative mixes of high-density housing with other residential development in CDAs. Opportunities for recycling older, non-heritage residential properties with higher density development. Opportunities for apartments and residential/commercial use buildings. Avoidance of negative economic and physical impact on surrounding land uses, whether existing or proposed. The objective to encourage high-density housing in specific areas. Our policies relating to that include promote high-density housing on properties already partly developed for high-density housing. 2, consider applications for high-density housing in the following situations. A mix of housing types in CDAs, areas presently occupied by conforming mobile home parks. 5, rezoning in areas presently designated for medium-density R3 zone residential use. 6, areas immediately north of the downtown defined as Notre Dame Street to North Granville Street. To the east, Heather Moyse Drive to the south, and Duke Street to the west. Subject to harmful impacts of local heritage housing. D, within residential commercial buildings. Number 7, downtown D zone, the urban core area. 8, city artillery or collector roads as referenced in section 7.2 and figure 7-1. 9, consider application for high-density housing in other areas with careful consideration of council's location criteria listed above. Numbers seem to be out of order here a bit. Here we go. C, suitability of the site for the proposed development. Staff comment: lots 19 to 26 and 43 to 50 were intended for low-density residential land use. The public street and lot layouts were designed as such. The proposed development of 4-unit row houses or townhouses will require lot consolidations. Groups of 4-unit row houses on consolidated lots will result in private streets off Putter Street. D, compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment: the subject properties abut R2 lands located to the immediate south owned by the applicant and the lands located to the east is zoned special use, St. Eleanor's Wellfield. The properties to the north and west are located in the community of Linkletter. And the map is attached there showing the subject property lots. E, any comment from residents or other interested persons? Staff comment. A public meeting was held on July 21st, 2020. The public meeting notice was advertised in the July 8th edition of The Guardian. 4 letters were mailed to 4 property owners. Robert Duffy and David McLeod provided an explanation for their request to rezone and indicated that the lots are large and there is interest from developers to purchase multiple lots and place row houses, possibly in groupings, but in no case would be the row houses have more than 4 units. There is also interest from developers to consolidate 2 lots and place 4-unit townhouse on the consolidated lot. No public was in attendance and no written comments were received regarding the application. F, the adequacy of existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services, city parking, and parklands for accommodating the development and any projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment, the city water supply and sewer treatment systems can handle the additional loading created by the change in zoning. Rezoning this development from R2 to R4 increases the loading on the downstream receiving lift station by 2.5%. Of the calculated future loading for the entire drainage basin. The city does not see this as a significant load change, therefore there is no expectation that the developer contributing to upgrading of a new lift station. Putter Street has 300 millimeter distribution main on the east side of the street that can handle the water requirements for this change in zoning. The city sewer main infrastructure for the development is 200 millimeter collection main that is to the west side of the street. Putter Street will meet any additional loading requirements from the zoning change. Storm sewer will be adequate for zoning change. G, impacts from the development on pedestrian and vehicular access and safety and on public safety generally. Staff comment, the proposed change in zoning from R2 to R4 will have minimal impact on the amount of traffic on Putter Street. The street can accommodate the additional loading requirements as a result of the zoning change. The paved shoulder on the Putter Street allows for safe pedestrian traffic. H, compatibility of the development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, there is no environment, scenic, and heritage resource to consider in relation to this application. I, impact on the city's finances and budget. Staff comment, no impact. J, no other matters as specified by this bylaw. Not applicable. K, other matters as considered relevant, not applicable. Technical services staff review. Technical service staff support the application from Macduff Holding, Inc. as per section 5.10, subsection B3 of the zoning bylaw and planning board. The planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for council for a final recommendation. So the planning board recommendation, the application from Macduff Holding Inc., Robert Duffy and David McLeod for a portion of PID number 1102318, lots 19 to 26 and 43 to 50, to amend the city's zoning bylaw from low-density residential R2 zone to high-density residential R4 zone, be recommended to be approved by council. With that, your worship, I would ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Ramsey from Planning Board. Any questions or comments from anybody before we call for the question? I think everybody had the opportunity to hear from the developers and at the special meeting of council, so I think
Just in respect to that, how respectful the developers they are. They always put themselves forward to us and to what they're doing and stuff like that, which is more than some other developers that I know.
Yeah, they always come with a plan, so it's good. Any other comments? If not, we will call the question for planning board to vote. All those in favor with the recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried unanimously. And that, Your Worship, concludes the planning board meeting for August 4th.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Mr. Chairman, Councillor Drawn, you have tech services.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of things on the Tech Services Committee agenda. We'll call that to order now and ask for approval of that agenda from Tech Services Committee. I will move that we approve that. Maybe my vice will second, seconded by Councillor Snow. Item number 1 on the agenda for Tech Services tonight is discussion on some work taking place or to take place
Or not taking place.
or not taking place, or that should take place, I don't know, but it's to do with Lower Lafergie subdivision, and I will hand that over to Councillor Adams and Director of Tech Services Aaron to lead the discussion on that.
Thank you. I guess, Aaron, we can sort of work together on this one. I asked for this to be put on because there were ditches in this area that were filled prior to Dorian. As counselor for that area and so many people asking, because it is in Lower Lafergie, a lot of water runs down there, I had agreed with seeding it over putting sod down to get more bang for our buck, so to speak, not anticipating that a natural disaster was headed our way. So I guess the problem was, and Aaron, you can come in after me and fix up what I'm saying, things washed away, and I believe Kern and Briggs have been back once to do it, but what I'm hearing, and I did a quick calculation, 8 residents, I'm not sure how many ditches we had done, but the 8 residents I have that have been calling me because I'm not sure if everybody's seen the pictures I sent around regarding, they're in the package, perfect. So I guess the residents' issue, and I completely agree with what they are asking, is when, as a city, we get a contractor in to do work for us, I think the work that that contractor does should leave the location in at least the same level, if not better. Like, right now we have lawns, and we have people in the area that they do take good care of their lawns. They know what they're doing. And one gentleman has said it's a topsoil issue. It wasn't topsoil put down, and I can't say yay or nay to that because I wouldn't know. But I think that's the big thing for them, is that their tax dollars went to this. They finally got it, and you know, it's worse in some ways than it was before, and to get the contractor back has been an issue, and I know staff have been trying very hard to resolve all this. And you know, we've had the question, I know, Your Worship, you've had the question, how have we paid for this, because it's a job not completed and so on, from residents. So I guess I can turn it over to Aaron, but I just wanted everybody to know that that's the issue, is an unsatisfactory job, like, compared to what was there before. So, Aaron,
Yep.
you can.
Not much more to add. The contractor, as you mentioned, the contractor, we just wanted to clarify, in the fall last year, they did complete the job. We did have a heavy rainfall event that will have a tendency on a topsoil and seeded area to, I'll say, for the lack of a better word, cut areas into troughs or trenches where the main flow of water is going. The contractor did come back and fix those up last fall, because at the same time we were still working over on McGee as far as the second half of that same contract, so they were still, I'll say, the storm happened while they still had forces working. They came back and fixed it up last fall. Again, this spring, the calls come in probably as typically they do in early May when weather gets nice and people get out and start maintaining their properties. Although they didn't have their forces till later on in May, so there was definitely a couple of weeks there in May when there's nobody coming out to do it, but they didn't have their forces on. We do require them to come back and do a second treatment in the spring after they do the stuff in the fall, because this is not necessarily a new issue. It is for topsoil and seeding, but it had been an issue with sodding over the years. We used to topsoil and seed. We'd have all these issues with topsoil and seed. Then we went to the more expensive sodding. We still ran into similar issues with sodding. As I'm glad you mentioned the topsoil, because it was still debated when we were sodding. Is it the sod? And I'm getting weeds in mine. We expanded our program to go back a year later and lime it and fertilize it the year after. So we'd be encouraging. It's a new lawn they're getting, that requires work. So we expanded our scope at that time to go back the year after and lime it and fertilize it, and then give a pamphlet to the landowner to say, this is a new lawn, this is what we've done to start it. It is going to require. So that they did go back this spring to do their fertilizing, and they did, I don't know, it was probably 3 or 4 days that they were down there. I'm not sure exactly the dates, in early June or late May, that they went down to reinstate the areas that were spotty, and then we had, again, June of a dry month as far as, and a combination of not being watered naturally, or whether it's the homeowner or the contractor, both taking interest in adding additional water than what's fallen. So we did get more calls again as recently. We did go down there, and ironically, I think we were both there on the same day looking at the status of it, and it is obvious that yes, it's a dry, fresh lawn. That my own lawn is in hard shape, let alone being an established and new one. So we did do up a letter to we are, like everything, chasing the contractors on a regular basis for numerous items that come up as deficient work. So we thought if we are chasing them right now, I don't know if I'd want anybody doing seeding work on my lawn right now. So we're saying we could chase them for now, or do we try and say in the later part of August, come in when hopefully, I shouldn't say hopefully, it's not as hot, or that we have a chance for grass to seed and take off. So we did up a letter to the affected property owners to advise them that yes, these various things have done, so that whether they saw the contractor or knew they finished, or to try and recap in a shorter version than we're doing here to the individual property owners to say, yes, they have been here, yes, we're chasing them. We'd like them to come back again in August to try and give it one more crack, although this will be for various reasons, the 4th time that they're actually seeding out areas, and to hopefully get it to, and as well, we provided them with a stuffer in there to say, here's some things that need to be done on a newly seeded out lawn, steps that have to be followed, that you do have a new lawn. Not saying that's right. The last question was, yes, we do hold back a percentage of money of every payment that's held off for 1 year to try and entice them or force them to come back and fix deficient items.
Hi, Aaron, is there a requirement of a certain quality of topsoil, or a minimum?
There's a
minimum. Is it 2 inches, 3 inches?
Yeah, I can't say for sure. I think there is in our spec calling for a certain, but we would have to take a sample and get it tested by someone else. But we do definitely maintain that whenever they finish their, we'll call it their rough grading of the material, we then say that there's a minimum thickness, whether it be 4 or 6 inches there is a number listed to say that there's a minimum topsoil depth that's supposed to be there. And I don't know anything else offhand, but
I know when I had mine done, they did sod, but there wasn't much topsoil down before they put the sod, and mine looks pretty good, but I have to put the lime and the fertilizer to it all the time, and the water. And this is a terrible time of the year right now to have anything grow. Unless you didn't want it to grow, it'll grow on cement if you. But
weeds.
Yeah, but have they done soil samples or anything?
We have not. No, I think down there at that location.
Yeah.
We had a couple spots where it had happened before, and we brought in our own staff person that's
Yeah.
more trained in that than we are.
Yeah.
And it appeared to be, we were having a similar situation. I'm not
Yeah.
sure the exact street,
Yeah.
but we brought in our own to say they didn't have any issue with the quality of the topsoil that was down and the depth that was there.
Yeah.
So we haven't gone to do that. And it was one spot we thought, okay, let's go and check it ourselves with someone that knows it more than us. And it came back in compliance. So again, it was the same old debate: is the moisture coming up, was it the seed, and was it the sod coming off a bad sod farm? And
Yeah, I know, I took a couple of guys out there, and I went out there the other evening, and it's not Hillside, the one...
Hillside and Haley.
Haley.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad, but there's one, probably a couple up from the street that looks perfect. And I don't know what he's done. Did he sod that, or do you know? Greg's? His,
They're all seeded.
they're all seeded. Did he, yeah. Because there's something different happening there. Probably.
When I'd say it'd be similar to your own as far as in your instance where it's a new lawn and requires attention, and the homeowner gives it, in fairness, more attention than the contractor coming by once every 3 days with the water tuck and spraying it down, as far as fair or not, that's, you can see the difference, but, yeah. And in fairness, some of them are not there all summer if it's nice too, they're off doing things, and,
okay.
Madam Chair, just a question. Didn't see any other lights on there. Maybe you mentioned it in your remarks there, but when we go for tenders, do we ask for sod or seed?
Yes, we ask for sod and an option to seed, and typically in some locations where, depending on the budget or trying to get it all done, we've chosen the route to seed it to get the entire area done, or to go farther.
Is it a much difference in the cost?
And that's why I could look it up for you. We had
Well, no.
we had it itemized, but probably $30,000 on the job or something. It's going.
I think it was
You know.
3 to 4 ditches
Yeah.
more by doing it. Yeah.
So we weren't sure that first. So then we used to ask for it after the time, so we made it in as an option so we'd get it up front, so we could consider it at award time. And that's why we ended up, and again, thankfully, we have one counselor that had it done in theirs and was more conscientious, and then we can, and in fairness, did put a lot of effort and time into it, and shows that it is there, it just needs, everyone considers because it's a new sod, it looks nice and green, we're done. It's, if you plant it your own, just finished a house and did a new lawn, it's a while before it's established, So that is our game plan, is to say that in the later part of August, which we committed to, that we sent out to the residents, was to chase the contractor to get a commitment to be there in that time frame, that hopefully when they, because in fairness, the one out in McGee is, I shouldn't say no issues, but drastically better, and it was actually done a week or two later than this one. And the only thing that we're saying was that one first, but it was the storm event that happened, and we went out and looked at that one, and it wasn't seeded out, I think, before the storm, but it was seeded out after, so we thought we still had a chance for it. But it is an inferior product right now, and we are still chasing the contractor.
Thank you, Aaron. I think that's all I have. The reason I brought it up was because residents were asking, so I thought this would be the best way to cover it all, and everybody's on the same level. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I guess that's momentum on that one is coming to a conclusion, so we'll move on to second item, which is just to give a brief, although detailed as possible, update on the Pope Road Central Street intersection. Last week, myself and Councillor Campbell met with Director Aaron and Acting CAO Gordon McFarlane at the time. I think this was last Monday or Tuesday. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, probably.
It was last week. So to give an update on that, basically at this point, all design work has been completed based on the direction that council gave back in 2019. So just for the public that might be watching or listening, the timeline kind of goes like this. When we got together as a council for the first time to do our first budget, we directed staff to tender out a consult for that intersection. So the results came in and the tender was awarded. All this was public, obviously. Harborside, I think,
Yes.
was the company that we awarded that tender to. And they came back to council with several different options and designs and layouts for that intersection. Those designs ranged from, totally aligning Pope Road as it is now, getting rid of that S-curve, all the way to, leaving the current approaches in place and adding a roundabout there. So that there's quite a variety of options that they came back with, but we narrowed that down. We zoned in kind of on a couple options that ended up having sort of a hybrid design. So, it's not going straight through, but also not keeping that wide S-curve, and that's kind of what we arrived on as we met over the last little while. So what we were actually left with now going forward is a more gentle alignment of that S, where it's not totally straightened out, but it's, gradually minimizes that curve. So in doing so, that also eliminated or at least minimized the requirement for us to go in and start, hacking up land that doesn't belong to us and that sort of thing. So just from saying that, now there are a total of 7 or 8 or so property owners in that area that staff have been meeting with and plan to meet with to discuss how this project might affect them and their property. The need for the acquisition of property by the city is actually quite minimal, ranging from a couple of square feet on one of them just to get a little bit of grass, and then further up on the scale, I guess there's quite a significant part that we might find useful, like in the Murphy's Pharmacy field. We've also committed to working with all of these property owners to enhance some of their properties, like making their entrances more accessible and that sort of thing. Squaring some things off, such as where Robinson, I think it's Avenue, kind of as it meets now on an angle to Pope. We're looking at squaring that off, as well as the entrance in behind Granville Street Plaza where the trucks go. That's kind of a crooked situation there right now. We'll also probably need to extend a driveway or two and of course add some sidewalks. I wish I could share the actual final bird's eye view today of that, but in fairness to those property owners, we really want to present everything to them first, so that they're aware of what's needed going forward, and so they don't see a design floating around Facebook or something wondering why they weren't talked to first. So that's why we're just waiting on them. I hope to be able to share some imagery soon. At the end of the day, I know all people want to know really is what is it going to look like and when's it happening, and that information is really close. It's possible that we'll be hearing back within the next month or two about what funding might be available for us. It's obviously a little too late in the year by that point, especially if that comes back September, October to really start on the main construction. So the plan and the hope is if any of that comes through, maybe we'll be able to start moving power poles and little things like that to get the site ready, hopefully for next year if we direct to go ahead with it. That's really all I have. I'll certainly open it up to questions, or if Aaron has anything that I left out or wants to add, please do so. If any questions by anyone?
If I can, there was a lot of inquiries about sidewalks up there. We have over 40 new units up there, and there's people, I seen them climbing over the snowbanks last winter going up from Granville trying to get up to even as far away. They come through there from the big Pope Road apartments. There's 2 large apartments there. They come down that way. So And Aaron did satisfy me with the plans that it's going to be sidewalked from Central to Granville. And that's a big thing. We have also have the Salvation Army there, where we have a lot of clients that are that are in that part. So that was our biggest concern, is to have sidewalks along with the design.
Yeah, and that design includes, there's an existing sidewalk on Pope now that goes up to Central, so it's going to integrate that with the intersection, and it's going to be, you know, you're going to be able to go down Pope all the way to Granville on a sidewalk. And I guess I should have mentioned that, yes, the plan is for a roundabout. I've been told it's okay to put that out there. So a full roundabout with sidewalks that, you know, go where they should safely, so everyone up there can safely get from where they live all the way to County Fair Mall if they want, or the theater. It'll all be sidewalked, so pedestrian friendly.
The only thing I would add is we have reached out to anyone that we had a email address to, or those number of addresses, and requested a meeting with them, and anyone else that we didn't have, we sent a mail out to them. I've heard back from, I think, 5 out of the 7. I've met with 3 or 4 of them, and I have tomorrow and the next day with a couple more. So there's only 2 remaining, and one is the church institution that I'm trying to deal with through their property division at Halifax. It's not local. They can't make the say local, and so the next couple of days we'll hopefully have the majority of them spoken to, at least to, and as he stated, they're hearing it from and seeing it from us, that we can explain it out to them without them hearing it on the street or looking and wondering how it affects them. So we're basically going over the entire intersection, what the scenario was and how it came about, and how it directly affects their access or their property.
Okay, and yeah, obviously it's no secret that we're going to need land that we don't own. It's always been, you know, kind of out there, but
it's probably the least intrusive option as far as thankfully was the preferred option here.
Yeah, and we've had the help of a third party to kind of determine what some of that might be.
Yeah, third party to do the design, and a third party to come up with the actual bio.
Yeah, it can be a sensitive subject, especially when the provincial government, you know, does things, and you hear about you know, people just taking land and that sort of thing. But we're certainly, you know, going the fairest method and evaluating it and valuing it and talking to everybody about it. So I'm happy with that. Councillor Ramsey.
Yeah, I just happy to hear this. I'm disappointed that I wasn't invited to the meeting, because it's part of my ward as well. And I made a phone call a couple of weeks ago to find out what was going on with that intersection. So I would have liked to have been present that day. But thank you for the information. And I think it's nice to see that it is moving forward, and that if there is another meeting, I would appreciate an invite.
Well, I would do it with you directly. I don't pay attention to whose the wards are. I just understood it was only affecting them directly in 2, so that's on me.
No,
that's
it's
on
3.
me.
That corner's 3 of us, because I did
So
call
I'll
Justin a couple of weeks ago.
I'll
and
definitely coordinate.
Thank you.
I'll definitely coordinate in the next day or so.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
that's on
Okay.
me.
Just so I'm in the loop, because
that's with the
I have
intention.
lots of residents asking me as well,
We were trying to
so.
line it up before these meetings to happen, before
Yeah.
tonight's meeting, so we said, well, maybe they should hear it before. If I
Right.
contacted and sent out letters, I thought the couple that were in that area, but.
Yeah, no, that's
So,
okay. Thanks,
yeah,
Aaron.
okay.
Thank you.
We'll do that
Okay.
the next day or something.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? I guess that was just fairly painless, more of an update than a discussion, but I think it's good to see that it's a big hot topic and it's going ahead. So hopefully we'll have some timeline information and some nice visuals to share with everybody really soon, but I think everybody's going to be quite pleased with what's happening.
And I guess just to point out, I know you guys sort of took ownership for it because it does connect your ward, but I received lots of comments in my ward, and I'm sure we all do. I'm sure Bruce, lots of his residents. So it's a significant thing to sort of get checked off the list of priorities we've had coming into council, and it's great to see this moving ahead, because I think there's going to be a lot of happy residents regardless where they live in the city. So.
So is there a date set for the next meeting? Yeah, to discuss that?
I would hope to be bringing back, say, interactions or the results of the interactions with all the property owners. to say, this is where we've set with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and number 7, and here's where we are, and with a summation of that, so when we can complete those chats, or if there's one outstanding, I'll have to come back to you, Sam.
And likely expect to have a staff presentation or recommendation. Council's going to have to, you know, agree or disagree to whatever it might cost to get the first step underway, you know, get some land, as it were, and that'll probably be the next direction that we'll need to give. So, with that, I will call for an adjournment to the Tech Services Committee meeting. Councillor Snow and I will second that, and we will adjourn that meeting for tonight.
Thank you very much. Okay, I guess Councillor Ramsey will go into the police, fire, and emergency planning.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I would like to call, hey Chief, welcome Chief. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I would like to, the approval of the agenda. The first thing on my agenda was the presentation to the late Lieutenant Brian Morrison, and I want to thank them for coming in. And the other thing I would like to speak about is the fire hall, and the WSP report should be back very soon on whether we need to replace the fire hall or renovate. We're now doing research. In fact, Chief Enman, Deputy Chief Kenny Blanchard, and myself went to Stratford and toured their beautiful new facility down there, their emergency service center, and it's just opened, and so we're on our way in gathering ideas and information. So I just wanted to put that out to you. There should be a report on that soon.
What, do you have an idea soon? Whether
Yeah, it was going to be the last week in July, first week in August, so I'm hoping the next few days it should be in. Yeah, that's the last I got on that. So the first thing, the other thing on the agenda is police services, and the recommendation for Rufus Street, no parking on one side. And I can read the recommendation.
is the side designated, or make a decision just
Yeah, well,
for parking on one side, or no parking on one side?
well, that's what we're doing. So I can read the recommendation if you want, and then we can kind of have a discussion about it, if that makes sense. Police and police and fire. So that no parking be allowed on the east side of Rufus Street between 11 Rufus and Notre Dame. Supporting explanation, complaints were received that emergency vehicles would have difficulty traveling this street if the vehicles were parked on both sides. Fire Chief Enman and Chief Poirier parked regular vehicles on both sides of Rufus Street and did measurements, and learned that a fire truck would only have 13 inches clearance, making it unsafe to respond to an emergency to this area. The alternatives were none. The advantages would make this a safe, this area safer for emergency vehicles responding to calls. The disadvantage were none foreseen, and the cost would be signage at $300. So if we have any questions on that, we've been discussing this, it seems like for months. If anybody has any questions on it.
Just a quick question. Sorry, did somebody else would like? I'm just wondering, were the residents in the area notified with this possibility?
It's the residents, the area, that made the complaints. Yeah.
Thank you.
And we have talked about a lot of these, and I think it's something we need to sort of look at more broadly as we receive complaints or issues on certain streets, and I know His Worship sometimes says, you know, we got to be careful eliminating parking spots, especially in front of people's houses, but at the end of the day, it's the safety of the whole street, not just one person that may be unhappy that they lose a parking spot. So if our emergency vehicles can't get to their destination, then our streets aren't very effective. So if we're receiving complaints, or if people have concerns about streets that they feel might be too small in case of emergencies with vehicles parked, I think we need to hear that as counselors, and then in turn have our, you know, our fire chief and police chief and whoever out to look into that, because the last thing we want is an issue where vehicles can't get to where they need to go. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Snow.
And Councillor Barb, I believe that the point that I want to make is certainly when it's coming through as a police and fire department recommendation, that's important. But I do know that there are some streets that, you know, indicated they had some concerns about parking or vehicles parking, and I think we have to be aware of that might stir some feedback from them, like why weren't we in that situation? And I think it'll be just a kind of on a need basis, but I just wanted to point that out because some people have asked that.
Oh, yes, and I understand that because we've heard the complaints up on Maple, right, where they're parking on both sides. So we know there's issues, but I guess we can only deal with one thing at a time. And in a lot of cases, most people aren't living across from Credit Union Place when there's a huge event going on, hockey and all those sorts of things, you know. So this one, I think, Chief, did you have anything to add?
No, Councillor. Previous meeting there, we had eliminated 2 parking spots at the lower end.
Yes.
So this will finish off that.
That will finish off that.
Up to Notre Dame.
Right. And so do you have, so we're going to bring this to council, I guess, for approval on August 17th, and then we'll sort out when the signs are going up. And thank you, Chief. Is there anybody else on that? No?
In any way we can do it without having council to vote on it. I'm not an expert on parking or speeding or any of that stuff, and it kind of puts us councillors in a bad spot.
Well, Councillor, I guess that's a protocol to bring it to council for a vote. So
that's all we can do.
I have no choice.
On professional recommendation.
It's already been done. The study's already been done, Chief. But yeah, on this one, yes, yeah. That's the one. This is the only one we're talking about right now, Councillor.
You know, as I mentioned in the report, there's probably a 13-inch clearance for the fire truck. They can still get by, but they'll have to slow down.
13 inches
and
isn't.
You know, a few seconds to get to a fire call or emergency call.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it, right? That's enough to stop it right there. Yeah. One way or another, you're getting through. Okay, so if that's all the questions on that, I think we'll move forward. I just have one more item, and it's on speeding, and I just think, you know.
So do you need to move that?
Well, it will be moved to council for voting on August.
Part of this committee is a recommendation. You should vote on it to send it to the
Okay,
meeting.
all right. Okay, so can I have a mover on this to, I'll move it myself, okay, and who would I have to second it? It's Greg. Okay, thanks, Greg. All right, so we move that this recommendation be moved to council for voting on August 17th. Okay, we're going to vote on it here again?
The committee. 3 members.
And the mayor is a vice, or ex officio, so.
Okay.
Call for the vote.
Okay, so we vote on whether this be moved to council.
Right.
All right. All those in favor? All right, there's just the 3 of us vote on this?
Just on the committee.
That comes back to council.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have to talk about speeding. Yep. And a couple of things that are going on right now, and I guess we can, the city has developed some signs, and residents may have noticed them on their other people's lawns or their own lawns, asking for folks to slow down for us. And so they ran out of signs real quick. And apparently there's more on order. And so residents are going to be able to come in and pick them up. I don't know when, does anyone know when they may be here? No, there's no date on that, okay. But I will certainly post it on Facebook when we know that they're replenished. And Gordon McFarland, our HR director, is putting together information on a number of different streets and the speeding and the traffic amounts, and we're still awaiting results from that, and we'll have a presentation hopefully from him on our August 17th meeting. That's what I'm hoping for. Right now he's on vacation, so anyway, but he should have that information for us. And of course we've been working on the crosswalks. And so we're doing everything we can to slow people down. I know we have some speed signs up on different streets, and I guess what I'd like for council to maybe just give some feedback back on how these things are working. Like, you know, what else can we do? I'm still getting the complaints, so I guess what I want to know is, how's everyone else feeling, or what are they hearing back? What's the feedback they're getting? And I'll open the floor to Norma, I guess, Deputy Mayor.
And you're asking?
Oh, your light's on. Just about what feedback you're getting regarding the speeding and, you know, I know we have some initiatives in place right now, but.
Well, I've heard some really good comments on the signs. People are waiting and really would like to have some for their particular streets. But the speeding, I'm still getting calls on Maple Street and Harvard. People do have concerns there. I've dropped off signs there, but on Maple, the parking for splash pad and playground, and it shows the arrow for parking. The calls I'm receiving on that is those little signs are being taken out of the ground and they're just being moved and people are parking there. So maybe a more permanent fixture so people know that it's, you know, it's definitely something coming out of the departments. And the other thing I'm hearing is when people come around Central Street onto Maple, it's really hard to get in and out of the driveway. So I made the commitment that I would mention it at tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mayor, or Deputy Mayor McColeman. Was first? Okay.
Okay, thank you. No, it's no issue. Thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you to the police department, because anytime I do have a concern, I usually send my concerns to the CAO. He in turn throws it over to the police department, and I've been pretty successful that way. And I know that the police are following up. I had an incident last week. I had the lady contact me and thank me for that. There is an area that I have a concern, and it's a busy little street, and that's West Drive. And I think we had traffic studies done there a few years ago, but what we need to do on that street is we have to have traffic studies going both ways, because they go out to the base in the morning, and in the evening when they come back. There's a lot of people, since they put the roundabout in at the air base, it's too easy to, when you're coming from west, to just continue turn in and go up through that way. And there's a lot of people doing that. And I know as late as yesterday, I know that I went by and there was some people stopped. So I know that the police are patrolling, and was it you, Mike? But I know the police are doing the best they can, but I'd like to see the traffic, some traffic studies done there again, and even, you know, the flashing sign put out there or something, because it's there is a lot of traffic on that street. So that's just my concern with the speeding so far.
Thank you,
Councilor McDougall. Councilor McDougall, I'll pass on the data to Director Aaron, see if we can set up there whenever they put it on their list.
Yeah, because I know we did it one other time, and they had just did it on one side, took the results from one side. So when we talked about the results, I said, no, there's a whole lot more traffic than that. So they had to do the results going both ways, because they're going early in the morning and 3 to 5 o'clock is busy again, right? And that's when the times are.
And
So-
even, sorry, go ahead.
Just wondered if that would be something then that Director Gordon McFarland, is that one of the things that, isn't that one of the things that he's doing on that study?
Yeah, if we could pass that information on, or if you can get Gordon to.
Yeah, I made
call.
note of it to pass it along. to the
Okay,
request.
thank you. Yeah.
And just for information as well, the portable speed dolly, we use it quite a bit, and we make sure it gets to your area, Councillor McDougall. We had an issue on Mackenzie Drive recently. Same gentleman had reported on 2 occasions, nothing was happening, so we brought the speed dolly down and left it there for 3 or 4 days, and the same gentleman reported back that it seemed to help slow. It's just a reminder, that's all it is. Not to catch anybody, but it's a reminder. You know, and just for information as well, in July alone, we had over, I believe, close to 100 traffic offenses, you know, we dealt with, so we will continue.
That's good.
Each shift, there's a member assigned to do traffic enforcement, which includes everything, traffic accidents, everything, you know, and we're getting complaints about motorcycles, stunt driving.
Just going to bring that up.
And we were able to apprehend somebody last month on this, and it comes with a hefty fine. So we'll just keep moving along.
Great.
Could I just ask a question, Madam Chair, in regards to,
Yes.
Yes,
Mayor.
Sorry. No, in regards to the muffler complaint. I got a number of calls, I think I forwarded them on, but is there a certain kind of muffler, I guess, that's very loud? Is it legal or illegal? I honestly don't know now.
Well, what happens a lot of times, people will get their vehicles inspected, especially the high-performance ones, and after they get inspected, they take the baffles off of them, but it is illegal, and, you know, we're getting some of them as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chief Brian.
It's just, and again, like Councillor McDougall, want to thank the chief and the department, because any time that I've called, and, you know, the response is very, very good, and just encourage citizens, you know, if you get a license number, because I've done it several times, and I know they're followed up, and I know I get a call back from the police officer that they've dealt with the situation, so I would encourage citizens to do that. I think it was September 3rd last year that we did a little presentation there around speeding and talked about sort of the 3 pieces there, you know, that education piece, the engineering piece, and the enforcement piece that seem to be, you know, communities that have had success in dealing with speeding, you know, have encompassed those 3 pieces. And when I talk about success, I mean, it's, you know, decreasing it 1 or 2%. You know, it's not, you're never going to eliminate speeding. The police can't be everywhere. But the information that was shared this past week in terms of some of the traffic counts and some of the numbers, and you know, it's very revealing. And there's, you know, that 5% seems to be, in my mind, the magical figure. If we can focus on the areas that are over that 5% threshold initially, anyways, and you know, some of them are consistently over significantly. That may be an approach to, you know, at least one piece at a time, trying to get her done. So, you know, I just found that information really worthwhile, and I know the report that we talked about, or the plan is being developed, and I was hoping it would have been developed by budget, but it wasn't. So, hopefully, it'll come in short order. So
we're getting there.
If I might, Chairwoman, you had mentioned about license plate numbers. People, it's a great help to us.
Yes.
Because when these people sometimes don't want to go to court, and that's fine, but just a phone call to the registered owner, sometimes that's all it takes to, you know, they didn't realize they're speeding and somebody saw them.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Councillor Drawn.
Thank you, Councillor Ramsey. Just while we're on topic, I guess, and kind of reporting our areas, one of the areas that I get most of my calls from, whether it's about speeding or whatever topic we're talking about, as a counselor, most of my calls come from Slim Park about speeding. And it's kind of a hard area to talk about or to give direction to, just because of the whole province owning part of it and us owning part of it. And they had some speed bumps that were out at one point, and they were just, people couldn't say enough good things about them. But now the province owns those, and they can't necessarily install them because there are streets, and
They're removed.
I feel like I'm tied, my hands are tied sometimes, but I guess just for anybody out there that's wondering, I'm still on it, I guess, and I know I've talked to Gordon about it, so if maybe we can, there he is, maybe send a note to him just to follow up on that. I'm kind of between our staff and Slim Park. Like, neither side really knows how to approach it, but I'm there quite a bit in the park, and the kids that are there, it's like a scene out of The Walking Dead. They're everywhere, and they don't care about anything. They're just walking in a straight line. But people could not say enough good things about those bumps when they were there. And there's a dolly there too, a radar dolly. I think it might belong to the Academy, because it says like City of Kinnivacasis or something on it. And it's very dim during the day, like you can't see it when and I don't even think they have it on at night, but just the way the sun hits it or the light hits it, you can't see the display very good. But I don't know, maybe there's something we can do in partnership with the Academy to work on some enforcement up there. I don't know, but just want people to know up there that we're still trying to figure things out.
Thank you, Councillor Duran. And I would also like to thank our police, and I know they're working hard, and the initiative that the city has put in place as well. I guess what I would ask of the residents is that they do just exactly that. If they can get license plates, that would be a great help. And with that, if there's no other question, oh, sorry, Councillor Snow. Of course you have something.
Yeah, no, just since we were mentioning it, Water Street is one that continues to be brought up in front of the boardwalk.
Yeah.
I was actually meeting with a resident today, sitting on his front steps, and he just said, bluntly, he said, Corey, I don't feel like I see the place enough for the speeders that are going by here with the amount of residents. That was his impression, and I said, you know what, I'll definitely pass that along. And I've always said this, I really feel enforcement and handing out those tickets are a big deterrent for people. It always was for me, so I really believe in that personally. I don't know if there's facts to back it up, but that's truly what I believe in. And from talking to residents, that's what the impression they get too. If they're seeing the police in their area, then they feel like there's less likely to be people speeding. Of course, they can't be everywhere, and we do work very hard, and we have a good police force, but that's just the concern they have. And then that Maple Avenue, Elm Street, Northumberland, right around Elm Street School, coming from the Cup. And
Willow.
Willow, yeah, and all that area in there is an issue. So I just wanted to make sure that they're listed as well.
Willow and Central, and hopefully Gordon's got those on his list. So we'll get a report hopefully from Gordon in the near future, and that'll. Chief? Oh, go ahead, Chief.
Just for Councillor Snow's information, we did lay charges in the Water Street West area. And for your own information, we sometimes send an unmarked car down there doing radar, so the residents may not see that.
And funny you should say that, because his comment was, unless they're coming in an unmarked car.
Yeah.
And I said, that's possible, but
okay.
I said I'd definitely pass it along.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. And Councillor Carey?
I think the one area of concern that I hear the most about is still a small avenue going into Woodridge.
Small?
Yeah, it's a 40, but after that four-way stop with Flamingo, they tend to sort of pick up speed going in there. I've had some residents contact us a couple times about it, and I think we were out and we put up some more signage. I think you guys put up some more signs too, like just making sure that everybody knew it was a 40. Other than that, I think it's I think we've definitely slowed them down in a few other areas.
The sad part is, Councillor, is that it's mostly the residents that live there that do the speeding, we found.
Yep,
And,
exactly. And that's what he said. He said they go by all the time. They're the consistent ones. It's not, yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. And I will again bring up Central and Maple, as I think Central needs a four-way there. But anyway, because that's the calls that I get majority of the time. And if there's no more, I will adjourn this meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Ramsey.
Okay.
I believe we have one more committee. Mr. Pardon? Economic Development. Councillor McFeely, the floor is yours. Oh, sorry. come on.
Community services there too, yeah. Thank you, Your Worship, and Director Tatuska has taken his seat. He got injured on the way. So the one and only item on the agenda for economic development tonight is the RFP for transit services and operational model study. So a recommendation will be coming forth to council at the monthly meeting. Lost my co-chair here, but we will proceed. So we'll read the recommendation into the record, and then maybe ask Director Mike to speak to the evaluations and so forth. So the recommendation will be that council approve awarding of the RFP for transit services and operational model study to Dillon Consulting Limited in the amount of $25,640 plus HST. Supporting explanation. Purpose: the City of Summerside issued a request for proposals for the preparation of a transit feasibility study and operational model. The fundamental outcome is to answer the following. As a city of 15,000 people, what should be the optimal public transportation solution / model, if any, to facilitate the movement of workers and citizens around the city and interconnecting with island services? And what ideally should that model be and its associate costs? So the report, a request for proposal, was issued on May 13, 2020, and submissions were accepted until June 12, 2020 at 3 p.m. The following companies submitted responses: CBCL Limited, Dillon Consulting Limited, Left Turn, Right Turn, Stantec Consulting Limited, Transit Consulting Network, and RSP. The 6 submissions were reviewed by the evaluation committee based on the evaluation criteria presented in the RFP document. The evaluation of submissions was completed in 2 steps. First, the technical submissions were scored, and this determined which submissions would be considered further. Any score less than 60 during the technical review made the submission unacceptable, and the pricing submission envelope remained unopened. All 6 of the proposals were evaluated as acceptable, and the pricing submission was reviewed for all responses. So the scores given: the average of the review committee, CBCL 81, Dillon 90, LTRT 78, Stantec 79, Transit Consultant Network 71, RSP 81. And a note, this study is an unbudgeted expenditure that will be funded through a transfer from reserve if the city's operation for 2021 do not end with an excess of revenue over expenses. So with that, I would, I don't know if anything additional that you would have to offer.
No, I think each company brought certain strengths and weaknesses to the table. There's 3 committee members that evaluated, obviously, company overview, their corporate experience, the team that they were bringing to the table, the scope of the services that they were proposing, any added value, schedule, and cost. So those are the criteria that we evaluated them on. Dillon certainly was one of the outstanding submissions as part of that process.
Okay. Any questions from council?
Just a question to
our committee.
Mr. Chairman, it says council approve awarding. Is it budget? Maybe it is it?
The recommendation is that council approve the awarding.
Is it in our budget, or is this?
The note on the
on
bottom,
budget.
your worship, is, it's an unbudgeted expenditure.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see
Yeah,
that.
that will be funded through transfer from reserves.
Okay.
If the city's operation doesn't allow.
The pricing, was there a lot of variation in the pricing? Because we're only.
Everything from 44,000 down to the lowest, which was Dillon at 25,000.
So this is the lowest?
This is the lowest bid. No,
Sure.
second lowest bid, sorry. The other lowest bid was $2,000 under this, but they didn't score as well on some of the other criteria. So it was a $2,000 difference.
Okay.
Ballpark.
Any other questions?
Not so much a question, but maybe a comment. This goes to the overall vision of what we want to see within our city. If we want to have a transit, improve our transit, or not have a transit, we're going to have to somehow find a way to get there. And this is probably the best way if we are already paying for services that at times we either want to see improved or wonder if the need is. So I think we need to make some sort of decision to move forward on transit in Summerside.
I think this need to do, yeah.
It's the first step in the process. It'll provide us with some good information to make some decisions on.
Correct.
And our annual contribution now to transit is,
Just a little over 2,000 a month, Christian?
so 25 grand a year, basically.
Grand a year, so.
Yeah. Okay, co-chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just another comment, I guess, from myself, as opposed to a question as well. I know, given all the development and the talk that we've had over the last few months, I think it's a really good time, and it's important that we do go ahead with this. And I know that the company that ended up scoring the highest, I know they've worked, done some similar studies with similar sized municipalities too, so I think it's going to be a good match. And like I said, really, we can't just use our own assumptions when it goes with transit. I think we need somebody that knows what they're doing to point us in the right direction going forward, and I think this is a great way to do it, and it's very important if we're to be a city that has transit.
Okay.
Just one quick
So,
question,
yeah.
Mr. Chairman. Dillon Consulting, where are they at?
They're based out of Ontario.
Were there any island firms or maritime firms?
The closest association to an island firm would have been Left Turn, Right Turn, I believe, and WSP, but they were managing, Left Turn, Right Turn was managing the project out of Toronto, but not and had an island connection, and WSP was managing the project out of Halifax, but had an island connection.
Okay, so Councillor Durand, I guess it's you and I are the committee, so and the mayor's ex official, so I don't know how formal we need to be with a motion, but I suppose we should put a motion on the floor that we approve the recommendation to council. Will you move that?
I will be happy to move that motion.
Moved by Councillor Durand, seconded by your worship. All those in favor say aye. Contrary, motion carried. So we will bring that recommendation forward to the August monthly meeting. And that concludes the Economic Development Committee. Your worship. So
Thank you, Councillor.
We will adjourn. Thank you.
Feely, thank you very much. Councillor Snow, you have community services.
I do, your worship. We'll start by calling the Community Services Committee for August 4th, 2020 to order. And if I could get approval of the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Adams. First up on the agenda would be the Meadow Heights Park gazebo. I will turn that over to either Councillor Adams or Director JP to start off the discussion.
I'll just start briefly and then JP can correct me and fill in all the blanks. So it's in regards to the gazebo that has been at Meadow Heights Park for some time now. JP can go into the details regarding its level of safety, sustainability, and so on. I guess why I wanted it brought up was to update on it, that something does have to be done on it. It was not brought forward during budget times. Probably one of those things that, you don't think of it until the summer, whenever, you don't think of it when it's covered in snow. Anyways, residents have reached out. This gazebo is well used, and they are wanting to make sure that it's either fixed up or replaced with something similar. There is a great park out there, and as all our parks are great and more well used during the past few months with COVID, that's the one good thing. Everybody's got out and about a little bit more. We've noticed a lot of families, you can sit in the gazebo and you can still see the children playing and so on. We've noticed picnics happening over there and so on. So I am looking for support resolution to possibly have to take this from the Park Reserve Fund to get the work done. I wouldn't go this route if it was something that we wanted to add, but since it's something we have, it's well used, and it's a replacement, especially due to some safety issues, I feel that it would be in the best interest to get it looked after and possibly take it from this area. So JP, Dr. JP, if you want to fill in what you guys found and Trent found and so on.
I think you covered it, Councillor Adams. Basically, Trent and I agree to disagree. He told me he brought it up during budget, and I don't recall cutting it out. But either way, it was identified during recent assessment of the structure that it's beyond repair, and the structure that's there just really isn't worth investing any more dollars into. So it does need to come out. It would be part of our late summer, early fall plan to do the removal inside of our existing budget. I think what the discussion is today is, do we replace it with what's there or another structure? And as I pointed out to my committee members, we don't have anything budgeted to do that right now. So Councillor Adams, in communication with Rob and myself and Kristen, discussed the Parkland Allocation Fund. So from there, what I did was just seek some information from Kristen regarding the process to withdraw and the amounts that are in that fund. So currently, as it stands today, there's $99,500 in that account. Withdrawals do require a resolution of council to do so. So it's up for discussion amongst council tonight, I guess, for does it meet the requirements, I guess, to utilize or not, or?
Do we have an amount that we're expecting to cost?
So the discussion, I think, with Trent and Councillor Adams was looking at some of the pod style models that we saw down in the downtown core that were installed this year, but doing something larger that accommodates a few more people and is accessible, wheelchair accessible. We don't have a cost back. We asked the current contractor that's doing the work now to provide us with one, but we just haven't had time to get it back. So any guess I would give you today, it would be strictly that, a guess. I'm assuming around 10,000, but that's a guess for a structure that size.
Any other questions or comments from council? Bruce?
No, I guess we would get a cost before it goes to council, right?
And I guess I'll bring this up. I know myself and Councillor Campbell have been talking about Park Up his area that he really feels needs some improvement, and he's talking about the Park Dedication Fund and just have to be careful how much we're pulling from where. So that'd be a good process to make sure we have some amounts, but and then go through the processes.
And it's probably important just for me to add that we should probably wait till Rob gets back and have a general discussion about what the plan is for that fund going forward. If there's been any discussions that I haven't been privy to in terms of plans for that amount or what have you. So I think we'll gather up the information and get the pricing and then have a discussion with Rob and then, follow back up with council in the near future. It's not coming out anytime in the next couple of weeks anyway, so we'll go from there.
I guess.
And there are other options. I know they're not as favorable, but there's talks about, you know, doing a nice greenery area with trees to provide shade, which would be more affordable, and probably something we could do inside budget this year, but, you know, the discussion can still be had at least on those two options.
My question would be, since we're talking about needing to replace it, should it be removed sooner than 2 weeks' time or a month's time? If somebody goes out there and gets hurt next week and says, you guys knew it was not in good shape, is it something we should get our crew on to? And I know we're strapped for time for work, but
we're not prepared to redirect staff at this point.
Okay.
We got other things we got to do. It's on our list and it will get done in this calendar year, but we've got play structures and we got stuff all over the city that we're struggling with as it is, so.
Perfect. I just meant on the, priority list how important it was, so.
I think that big development up there where I'm at, I think it's 43,000.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask Kristen that for you, the development that's going up in Greg's ward, McEwen, yeah, so that would add to this current amount, correct?
Yes, it would.
Okay, that's good, okay.
Any other questions, comments? So we'll wait for some amounts to come back, and you and your department will take care of it in the meantime. Perfect. Next up on the agenda is a seniors initiative update. Last council meeting, Councillor McFeely brought forward some questions and asked for an update from community services in regards to how we are moving forward with our seniors initiative. So I'll turn that over to you, JP, and you can give an update.
Thank you. Yes, so essentially, I think it was sometime in the month of May or June. My COVID brain's a little bit shaky here, but Rob directed myself to have staff look at sort of existing seniors programs and kind of determine from a municipal standpoint where the gaps may exist. He asked me to have that completed by the end of August, which I suggested I would do. We presented to council and then we would start looking at the terms of reference for a future seniors initiative type thing. So that work is ongoing. I've assigned it to a couple of my staff members to do that. So a report likely could come back in September for committee with more recommendations from myself and Rob on what a terms of reference may look like.
Any questions or comments from council?
I think we agreed last spring, or whenever it was budget time, that a new setup would be arranged late summer, early fall, and the time is about right.
Councillor Campbell?
Just, JP would know, but Mr. Anderson said that he would help with any information you need from, he was on the board of both Ace Friendly and Pepsi. So he's there, that he can call.
And I think that's the plan as we get further into it, that we'll engage community groups and individuals to make sure that we're incorporating everybody. And if there's no other comments, questions, I'll move for adjournment.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. That's the end of the agenda for the committees. I believe there's items in the plural for committee of the whole. So we're on